around housing that have really achieved a massive swell of public opinion and have pressured developers and councils to take a different stance. I mean, the Focus E15 mothers are an absolute inspiration. So when Green Party members can get involved in these sort of campaigns, support them, and serve as a broadcaster for the issues that we're facing. So I certainly think our Green Mayor should first of all be a campaigner, someone who isn't afraid to get out on a megaphone, get out on a bike, get out and really fight for these issues and talk authentically. I mean, I have had a lot of experience in the London housing market. I've had to move 5 times in 3 years. I think I could talk authentically about how terrible this housing market is, and we need to connect and join up all these campaigns and make sure people understand and realise the wholesale abuses that are happening.
Thank you. Okay, Rashid, what's your take on this?
My take on this, as a person who came from the Guinness estate in Brixton, where we had a crazy regeneration going on, and half the residents were thrown out onto the street and half got shiny new flats, and the rest of the land went onto private development. Number one, we need to be out and really educate the people of the community as to what is at stake here and how they engage with their town hall and their local councillors, because a lot of these decisions are coming from town hall levels. And I was at an event yesterday, and it was a lot of the people that were evicted out of the Haygate estate, Elephant and Castle. And I went down as a Green Mayoral candidate and I spoke, and they said no politician actually came and spoke to them. Well, I spoke to them and explained the power that they had as citizens and the right to vote. And I said the people who are making these decisions were voted in by people like yourselves. So you need to be politically active. You need to make sure that you hold these people to account. You shame them into action if it needs be.
Time. Thank you. And Tom.
Thanks. The first thing to say is that as mayor you have no power over what councils do with their estates, so it's about persuasion and offering alternatives. And that's why I've developed the idea of setting up a London-wide housing cooperative or a community land trust that would be an umbrella that would support residents wanting to bring forward progressive schemes, and that could be regenerating their own estate. And there are examples in London, for example the Anderson estate in Finsbury Park, where the residents led on developing a really good alternative plan, and unfortunately the council then took it back off their hands. But we would give them a city hall on their side to be able to come up with an alternative plan for their own estate, and a feasible, realistic plan. The second thing is to emphasise is that we can get behind those campaigns, as she'd mentioned, and I've been involved in one just on my doorstep, the Central Hill. I've been involved in lots of them. In fact, will be at the Cressingham Gardens protests on Monday at Lambeth Town Hall. This is happening all around London, and working with groups like Defend Council Housing, the Radical Housing Network, both to support them and to inform them and to engage and give them encouragement. And also we've got to remember that we also all want to be London Assembly members, and in my work with Darren Johnson I've done a lot of work to provide backing on this, and the Housing Committee produced a major report on estate regeneration that looked at best practice, and we should be doing more of that.
Right, thank you. And Jonathan.
This is an issue that's very close to my heart. In answer to your question, we did save the glebe and we put up a very strong fight. I've been working with Councillor Scott Ainsley there to defend Cressingham Gardens for the last year, and we'll be at the demo on Monday with Tom. Please do come down to it. It's true. I think the first thing I'd do is I'd put Tom in charge of housing. He really does know his stuff. I think we need a London-wide housing commission, because there are so many issues here that we need to address, and they are all interlinked. But I want to see the Mayor's London plan beefed up, because Tom's right, he doesn't have the power to overrule everything, but he does have the power to overrule some planning applications. And I want to see him use those powers, and there needs to be the incentive written into the London plan to do that. And I also want to see incentives to refurbish and repair rather than demolish. At the moment, councils are making these decisions based on money, based on finances. They want to get more housing on the footprint. They see an issue over a lack of social housing. They're employing special purpose vehicles, which leaves tenants vulnerable. Tenants are losing out, but they're doing it because they feel that repair and refurbishment will be too expensive. And so we need to look at, as part of the Housing Commission, ways of making that happen.
Well, you can see we've got no shortage of ideas. I'm sure Caroline is going to add to those.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, totally agree, put Tom in charge of housing in terms of policy. But what have I done to help on housing? There is a community, Islington Park Street. At the moment, they are facing eviction in Islington. I have been supporting them ever since they first received their first eviction notice, helping them to frame their case to counter the rhetoric from one housing group who sees their home of 39 years standing as a group home as one housing group see it as an asset to be sold off. I managed to get an amendment to an emergency motion into the town hall to get it classed in a particular way in planning terms to keep it as a group home. Labour have now, although they all voted against my amendment, they have now actually implemented it, and Islington Park Street do have sui generis use class for their home, which means that one housing group, if they sell it off, they would have to apply for change of use, and hopefully that would at least provide a bit of a break. So I think it's doing what you can to influence things and provide support.
Thank you. Yeah, it's Charlotte's question.
Okay, now this is a very, very widespread problem, and I think what's interesting is that it is, as Rashid points out, it's Labour councils that are doing this, and we do need to have people voting not Labour and voting for new councils. But I think at a London level that the mayor does have some powers. The London plan can't set out exactly what happens in every estate. The mayor does have call-in powers in some areas, but I think the London plan can be amended to change the processes that have to take place. What we're ending up with is areas that are being planned with developer and development profits in mind. So the councils are, chucking people out, breaking up the existing communities. What's being built is a soulless place, often without any culture. And that's not good enough. And I think the mayor can put into the London plan the processes that have to take place, and they can involve making sure that residents lead on the redevelopment of estates. Too many of them are being demolished all in one go and rebuilt, and that isn't what I don't think any residents would choose if you actually ask them to provide a master plan and put in place a vision for their own area. And so I think the mayor can have some power over the processes that take place and make it more fair and more involving.
Okay, where put them, the Andover estate is a prime example. Tom mentioned it earlier, community-led, put in other benefits as well as building more homes on existing estates. Let the community decide what's needed. In the case of the Andover, it's a new health practice. In terms of how spread the example, it's about getting involved and being helpful, not just being there for the photos. And in terms of the criticism, of course we need more council housing. We need a government that is not going to have this ridiculous thing that any council housing built in Islington immediately has to be sold off because it's too valuable. So we have all sorts of problems, but absolutely we need genuinely affordable housing, not housing that's affordable according to the 80% of market rents, which is clearly not affordable to anyone on an ordinary salary. Is that a minute?
Yeah, yes, well done.
Okay, yeah, so where does the housing go? Well, I think we do need more housing. The problem we have at the moment is a lot of properties are being built, and as Tom says, a lot of assets. But we have a policy where we need housing, that's written into the London plan. Things that develop assets that nobody lives in, they don't fulfil that plan. And I think we can be a lot tougher on empty homes. We can fill a lot of those. We can compulsorily purchase buy-to-leave houses. We can put prohibitions in place in planning agreements. So I think we can do a lot to provide new homes without building, but I think the building needs to be done in central London as far as possible. Green Belt should be saved, and places like City Airport. At the moment you can't live around City Airport because it's a noisy, dangerous place to live. If we close that airport, we could build a lot of homes in that space, and people in the local area already put together a master plan for that, and I think we should be listening to people about what they want in their areas and putting houses in place that way. The other question about how we spread good practice and how we help campaigns, we are the only party, I think, shouting about how brilliant the housing campaigns, people defending their estates are, and we should carry on doing that. We should carry on getting involved in those campaigns, helping them like Caroline has done in practical ways by finding the planning loopholes that we can put in place, and being helpful to the campaigns. That's the main thing.
Okay.
So in terms of spreading practice, Greens, we're good campaigners. We know how to fight elections. We know how to change public opinion. I'm out in my local area, St George's, where there is a proposal to turn the church locally into lots of luxury housings and a bit of a church. I'm there with the campaign advising them about how they could fight their campaign as effectively as possible, so we need to spread our best practice. In terms of where the homes are going to go, there's got to be a principle of brownfield first, and there is a space in Britain, TfL land does have 5,700 acres worth of land. There is land there that can build housing on. We also need to look at whether or not all demand is good. Lots of housing is going into the buy-to-let mortgages, lots of housing is going and being lost in foreign investors. As a Green Mayor, I don't think you see a Green Mayor supporting conferences that are designed to sell housing abroad rather than for homes. In terms of council housing is hugely important. We know that a market solution won't solve London's housing crisis. One of the best solutions to that is providing more council housing. Council housing used to be for everyone. It didn't used to be for the most vulnerable. And we need to go back to a situation where that's the case.
Thank you.
We absolutely need to build more housing, but the fundamental problem is that housing has become a speculative commodity. It's become a distorted market, and you can look at the oil market, you see what happens, the price goes up and down. With housing at the moment in the capital, it's been speculated of. We need to take the heat out of that speculative housing market and the buy-to-let landlord. So absolutely a crucial way of doing that is to be the party of social housing, and I want us to be proud of our social housing. I think we also need to be looking at developing community land trusts. It's something that we haven't pushed forward in the capital. It's something that we know works. It keeps the price of housing down and it makes it permanently affordable. On the Housing Commission, I want us to look at a definition of affordability that's actually realistic for London and have a living rent set as well as part of that Housing Commission. With regard to the land, TfL is one of the biggest landowners in the capital. It has 5,700 acres of land across the capital. In Lambeth, the council is one of the biggest landowners, and it's just sold off 12 huge blocks to private developers, which could have been used for social housing. The problem is not that there isn't enough land, the problem is that the land is going into the wrong hands.
Time. Thank you.
The issue for housing for London is obviously that's the #1 issue facing this coming mayoral election. So many people come to me, they complain about the state of housing and the affordability, and when I realised that what they class as being affordable was 80% of the market rate, I was like, that's bizarre. So that means that something that was unaffordable 2 years ago is now become affordable. And yet still people are getting the same wages. It made no sense whatsoever. So when I saw how the Guinness said that they're going to build a 12-storey block and everything will be for affordable rent in the middle of Brixton, and so you start to realise the language that people are using to really blind the average citizen as to what's going on. The land is there, the land exists, it can be built on. But unfortunately, as I'm starting to realise, I think when we was over at Central Hill and what was happening there, and the price of residential real estate had gone up by 12% in 6 months. So your land is worth more as a building site than as a house.
Please. Thank you.
Okay.
Pass it to Tom.
Thanks. Well, you may have heard me talk a lot about speculation and council housing and so on, so I'll just agree with everything they've said there. But I'm going to start by disagreeing with something, which is that there isn't enough land, that London has a serious problem with the growth of its population. The land, if you take all of the brownfield land, all of TfL's land, if you assume you're going to demolish loads of council estates and rebuild them, there isn't enough land for the number of homes that we think we need because of the growing population in London. There aren't enough empty homes either. So how do the Greens tackle this? Labour and the Conservatives both see this as something, as a partnership between developers and government trying to find this. What I want to say is that the Green Party needs to be about doing that in partnership with the people of London. So whether it is protecting council estates and helping to build homes through community land trusts and cooperative models, which touches on the Focus E15 thing, we're not just there rabble-rousing, we're there giving them a practical alternative. And it's also about finding land. There's the model in America of citizens' audits. We know our communities better than most people. The Anderson estate is a good example, as is the St Clement's Community Land Trust in Tower Hamlets. If you give local people the opportunity to try and say, what could you do here, they can find more space for homes. They can find buildings that can be built upon to go up. They can find the solutions to the housing crisis in London.